Hi, I'm Venessa Giunta. I am an author and an editor and an all-around like to talk about things person and a little awkward sometimes. One of my favorite things to do is talk to authors, right? I love talking to authors about their process, their writing, their careers, their marketing, all those things. And I really love just sitting down and just talking about stuff. I mean, communication is my love language. So that's really what I had in mind. I really wanted a situation where I could just have a conversation with somebody. So, and a conversation and a cocktail is really all about us hanging out and drinking together and talking about the stuff. Hey, everybody. Welcome. I'd like y'all to all say hello to Rebecca Roanhorse, who is our special guest today. She's also one of the guests of honor at Multiverse. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have you here. So let's talk a little bit. Let's just jump right into it. The first, how everything kind of started for you as far as your writing career comes down to like initially your short story, right? Your short story, Welcome to Your Authentic Indian Experience, right?
Yeah. I actually sold my first novel before my short story came out, but publishing is slow and it took about 18 months from sale to shelf.
Mhm.
And in that time, Welcome to Your Authentic Experience trademark came out. So yeah, I could start there. I think actually I'll start a little bit earlier than that, though. I think I'll start with third grade.
Okay, let's just roll it on back.
Yeah. So in third grade, I wrote a poem and I won an award for that poem. And I was hooked. It was very, it was this sort of Freudian look on like trees. We don't need to really bring up the details. But I was inspired. And from there, I just started writing. And then I think my other big writing moment was in seventh grade. We had this assignment to talk about the planets. And I turned that into this astronaut on a suicide mission to the sun. And so as he hit every planet, he had things to say, but it was also very much like, tell my wife I love her. As I
like Major Tom.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And I was a Major Tom fan, I was an 80s kid. And so at the end, he suicides into the sun. And I believe I got a B+ on that because it was not supposed to be a narrative. It was supposed to be a science report. But that was that. I felt like writing was really my calling at that time. But I did a lot of different careers. I was a computer programmer for 10 years, and then I was a lawyer for 10 years before I came to writing full time. And actually, that was just, I never meant to become a writer full time. It was always sort of, I guess, my happy place.
Mhm.
So when life was stressing me out or the job wasn't going well, because I was a lawyer, but I was not a great lawyer. I was a mediocre lawyer. I would turn to writing. And so I actually started writing Trail of Lightning as a project for myself. I was a huge urban fantasy fan, reading Laurel K. Hamilton, Alona Andrews, folks like that. And I wanted to write my own version of urban fantasy, where the female protagonist was in a world of gods and monsters of her own culture. And so that was really the motivation for Trail of Lightning. And I wrote that after work, sitting by I had a 2-year-old daughter, or even younger, I think, when I started. And I would sit at her bedside at night from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And write that novel. And only purely for my own pleasure. I never thought even about publishing it. But then later I joined a NaNoWriMo group and to finish it, to sort of get motivated and to finish it, just to have something that I had created. And the women there really encouraged me to query it and I didn't know anything about publishing. I was, I lived in New Mexico. I was not familiar with like the publishing world at all. And when you're outside looking in, it's very intimidating. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot to learn. I didn't even know what a query was or what
It's
an
a
agent.
huge learning curve.
Yes, it was a huge learning curve. And so I did my research and I cold queried an agent, a couple of agents,
Mhm.
and my agent, and I did okay. My agent,
Clearly.
she gets about 30,000 queries a year, and she picks up about 5 to 10 clients from
Wow.
that, and I was one of them.
Nice.
Yeah, so it can happen. People, if you're out there and you're querying, you're thinking there's no way, there absolutely
Mhm.
is a way. So I got picked up by her. We sent the manuscript out, and within a week we had sold it.
Wow.
I
That's
know.
amazing.
So,
Did
and it
that
just went from there.
were you when that came through, can you talk about your reaction? Were you a little scared, intimidated? I mean, obviously excited, beside yourself,
Mhm.
I'm sure. But like, what were your kind of feelings? Because that is pretty fast,
Yeah,
right?
it was super fast.
I
Yeah.
know.
Well, I had sent it to other agents. There was
Mhm.
one agent in particular who I will not name, who rejected it. And so my first experience was a rejection. And I
That just means you're
cried.
a real writer. That just means you're a real writer. Good job.
Yeah, but I cried, and my husband was like, "It's okay," and I was like, "Oh no," and it was just, and I hadn't even really thought, "Oh, I'm gonna get out there, I'm gonna publish." It was just being rejected,
It's a
and like,
rejection, right? It's
yeah,
hard.
it's hard, and so I don't know, I think I can't even remember now. So I sold it in 2016,
Mhm.
and I have a terrible memory. I'll just put a note in that. So I'm sure I was very excited. But I really had no idea. You get excited, and then, like I said, it takes 18 months to actually make it
Right.
to the shelves. The book
Mhm.
didn't come out till 2018. And so you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be a published author in 2 years.
Someday.
Yeah, someday. So, and my editor, after he said, "Hey, congratulations," we didn't talk for like a year. So so it's not exactly, sort of like what you might think publishing is like until
Mhm.
you experience it. But in the interim, I did come out with the short story, Welcome to Your Authentic Indian Experience, trademark. And things sort of moved along, but yeah, so that's kind of how I got started as a professional writer.
I
And then I
love that.
didn't go, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I didn't even go full time until 2020, I believe, when I got the Star Wars gig. I wrote a Star
Mhm.
Wars.
Mhm.
And once I had that, they're like, okay, so you have 4 months to write this book. And it took me 3 years to write Trail of Lightning.
You're like, "Uh-oh."
Oh, okay. So that's when I actually quit my full-time job because I knew there's no way I could write a
Right,
book and work full-time, especially if I only had 4 months to write it.
right.
So yeah, and so then the story goes on as we know it.
Yes, I definitely wanna get into that part of your journey as well. But I wanted to come back to, the short story. I had read that not when it came out, but not long after it came out.
Mhm.
And one of the things that struck me is, so those of you who don't know, the story is written in second person. And that is a very difficult uh, choice, point of view choice. So I'm curious, did you choose that consciously, or like what went into that decision?
Yeah. So I had originally written it in third person,
Hmm.
and it was just honestly, it was flat. It was
Hmm.
not like working. And I don't even remember, like I said, bad memory, why I thought that would shift uh, the narrative, but clearly it did.
Hmm.
And I knew like part of it was that I wanted to sort of indict the reader in the process. Like I wanted to bring them in and put them in the shoes of the protagonist and
Hmm.
how best to do that. Because I thought that that's what the story was missing. I didn't want you to be able to have space between you and the protagonist, Jesse, who's this Native American who's sort of working, creating these artificial experiences for in virtual reality for people to experience what it's like to be Native. But all the experiences are like hokey and fake,
Right.
and
And
what a
stereotypical.
tourist might expect, right? Whereas his life is very mundane. He goes home to his ranch house with his wife and lives out his sad sort of, basic life. So anyway, so I wanted the reader to be I didn't want them to be like, oh, poor Jesse, tragic Indian, which is sort of the stereotype you have already. I wanted them to feel like they were him, like they were part of that. And so that's what my choice to write it in second person was. And I will be honest, because I was so naive about the whole sort of writing
you had no idea that second person was hard.
no, or that it was sort of a no-no that like people don't really do that,
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well, this sounds good, I'm gonna try it, and that was actually the first short story I'd ever written.
Oh, wow.
So I really didn't know what I was getting into. So I think that worked for me.
Do you have so one of the things that occurs to me when you're saying that is that clearly you have storytelling ability, like your ability is in storytelling, right? So that translates to writing well if you can, if you master the language. And having been a lawyer, even if you feel like you were a mediocre lawyer, that does require some understanding of, the written word. So I guess I'm curious, like growing up, I mean, obviously you were a reader, but like, did you, and you said that you wrote when you were young and things like that, but were you a storyteller even as a child, like growing up?
Yes, I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
Actually,
Well, I mean, I can't dispute you, so you say whatever you want.
I was a huge reader, obviously. Like that was really my lifeline, most of my personality, I'm gonna say, like as a young person, exactly, right?
I was raised by Charles Ingalls in the Little House on the Prairie books. He was my dad.
Yes. I think I was raised by like the Dragonlance Chronicles. I think Hickman and Weiss were like, my surrogate parents.
Yeah, Stephen King was my stepdad. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, and I remember, actually my best friend and I would make up these elaborate like stories of our lives and like our fake boyfriends and our fake, like we were cool high school kids when we were not. And things like that. So yes, I think like that sort of thing, my imagination has always been sort of running at full speed, like creating characters and stories and things like that. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah, when I was in high school, my best friend and I used to write a fanfic. We're 80s kids, so you'll understand this. We were writing a fanfic about Duran Duran being our boyfriends.
Yes,
we would,
exactly.
we would pass it back and forth between classes. So this isn't something the people watching don't already know. They already
no. Very fair, very fair.
Anita was raised by Agatha Christie and the Grimm's brothers. Now we know why you write horror, Anita. Edgar Allan Poe was my cool uncle in high school.
Nice. Very cool.
That's fabulous.
I'm not the only one. I feel a little
not at all. That's hilarious. So actually kind of related to this, I just want to toss this out because I was reading, obviously in preparation for this, I was reading previous interviews that you'd done with some folks. And there was something that somebody asked you about world building. And you said something that I thought was just really, really good. You were talking about how you try not to get too caught up in the world building, meaning you don't put you use as much as you need versus like dumping everything that you've ever thought of about this world into there. And the quote was, y'all listen to this now. The quote was, "World building is not an indulgence, it's a necessity. I try to keep it necessary." Oh. And that just really struck me. I mean, I feel like that's a quotable. I feel like we need to see that on a meme, not a meme necessarily, but like a quotable thing. So so when you're doing, say, an urban fantasy, like how do you approach I mean, obviously you have to balance world building with character. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you approach that in that way.
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little more for epic fantasy because I think
Okay.
that's the real
I mean, that's
world
the most
building
world building,
challenge.
right?
Yeah. And for me, world building starts with character. So
Mhm.
rather than maybe like creating a world, and a lot of people like create a Bible sort of the world and all the
Mhm.
things about it, and then plop a character in, I tend to work from character out.
Mhm.
So let's say I have a character who I want to be a sailor or a pirate or something like that. Then I will sort of build what they need. Okay, so they're going to need a ship. So they're going to need a sailing culture. So you're going to have, ports and everything that sort of goes with that. And I let character be the core or the kernel of
Mhm.
my world, and then I expand outward only as far as necessary. So I'm not gonna, create, 15 different trade routes and all the different things they need to move back and forth and like 7 different cultures. And then, oh, there's all this sea stuff over here and stuff. I'm only gonna do what's necessary. But then I'm gonna deep dive and I'm going to make it all relevant to the character.
Mhm.
So hopefully that world feels very real and very lived in and very immediate to that character's needs and wants
Mhm.
and sort of everything about it. And so that way, I think you avoid sort of the info dumping, like that indulgence thing I was trying to get at. That way, you don't get, authors who are like, let me show you all the cool stuff I came up with, these 5 different languages that never get spoken by anybody, but I thought of them. And you're like, oh, nobody cares because nobody cares about you. So that's what I'm trying to do. That's the impetus.
Yes, and that makes total sense to me. Like that resonates with me because I also start with character as well, almost always. Um, but oh, Anita says, and you're going to have to learn how to navigate and learn about ships,
Right,
all of
right.
that stuff. So you said that you have a bad memory. So once you actually start creating this stuff, do you then make a story Bible?
I don't.
Oh
I
my gosh,
don't.
how do you keep track of that?
It's all in here.
Oh,
And if it's not in here, then I'm like, oh crap, I'm screwed.
so clearly you use all your memory for your
I
stories.
think so,
So
right?
you don't remember like real life stuff at all. I support this plan. I think that's
Yeah.
fabulous.
No, and I've always wanted to. I remember there was like an auction where there are people who specialize in creating story Bibles. So you give them your books and then they go through and they
Oh, I
make
need
notes
that.
on all the characters and like all of this stuff. And I'm like, oh, I need one of those people. I need them to do that because I do not remember. So
Yes. Same,
yeah.
same. Yes. And it's funny because I have a number of friends and who are, have achieved some success in publishing and they're super fans. They have a couple super fans that they use and they
Yeah.
create and keep the story Bible up to date and just
Amazing.
send it to the author. And the author's like,
Amazing.
excellent. Because nobody's gonna know nobody knows a series as well as a super fan. Even the
Right.
author
Even the
doesn't know the
author.
series.
No.
Because it's like, dude, I wrote that. It's out of my brain now. It's gone.
Right, right. I've written 4 books since then. I do not remember. Yeah.
And slept many times. It's all gone.
Yeah.
So yes. Okay. So I'd really love to get into the sort of Marvel and Star Wars stuff.
Oh,
So how did that end up happening? How did you wrote a Star Wars novel, right? So how did
yeah.
that end up happening?
Yeah. Randomly. Like these things are just sort of
Well, yeah,
wild.
sometimes they are. Sometimes they're
Yeah.
so random.
Yeah. So, Star Wars has a lot of native influence.
Mhm.
Everything from Princess Leia's hair, which is based on traditional Hopi hairstyles, to
Mhm.
the Ewoks, inspired by the Miwoks, which is a tribe in Northern California. Um, One of my favorites when, Princess Leia walks into Jabba the Hutt's lair, she says, Yate, Yate. It's like that's Navajo for hello. So all these native influences, but no native characters. And so I think on Twitter, this was back in the day when Twitter was not what it
Was
is today.
not quite the cesspool that it is now. Yeah.
No. And I did a little thread on like all those native influences, and I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, we should get a native author to write a Star Wars. Wouldn't that be cool? I was not thinking me because I was not experienced enough, and Star Wars felt like this thing way out here. That's
Uh,
impossible. But other authors chimed in and they were like, yeah, let Rebecca write a Star Wars. And, oh, yeah, this person, yeah, let Rebecca write a Star Wars. And then even my editor talked to the executive editor of Lucasfilm, the publishing arm. It's like, hey, maybe Rebecca, you should let Rebecca write a Star Wars. So they came to me.
You were like, I saw this going differently in my head.
So they came and they asked, do you want to write a Star Wars? And I was like, oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I was like, no, I'm terrified. And then I was like, yeah, I do want to write a Star Wars. And so that's how I got the gig. But, amazing. Getting the gig and then performing are two entirely different things. That was one of the more challenging assignments.
What made it challenging? Were there specific things that made it challenging? Was it the previous canon or?
It's everything, so 4 months, like I said, I had 4 months to write the book. And I could not be late because the book I wrote, Resistance Reborn, was a bridge book between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. Okay. It needed to come out before the movie came out. Right. And of course, the universe is massive. Like, how do you even start to, the way that the Star Wars worked, at least in my experience, was they give you an idea, like, here's kind of what we want the book to be about. And like, here's the characters you need to use. Like, you can't use Rey because we're saving her for the movie. This is a Poe book. And so you need to focus on Poe. We want the sort of resistance to get back together. We want there to be a knock list. A few little things like that. And then they're like, okay, now you come up with the rest.
Go, little writer, go.
Yes. And we're also going to have, like all the movie people review it too, because they want to make sure that you're like on the right page, right? You're just like, oh my God.
It feels like the world's worst dissertation, defending your dissertation.
Yes, right? And it's just massive. And there are people who are so invested in the Star Wars universe. Yeah. And like you said, no one knows it better than the super fans. And while I am a Star Wars fan, I am not a super fan. And so it's very intimidating. But I reached out to Daniel Jose Older. Yes, I got notes from JJ. So, yes. But I reached out to Daniel, and because he had written the Han Solo book. And I was like, Daniel, how do you even do this? Like, how do you even help? How do you start? And he's like, listen, they know who you are. They've read your stuff. They know what you're good at. This is what they want from you. They don't want you to write a Star Wars that sounds like George Lucas wrote it or that Daniel wrote it or, something like that. They want you to write a Star Wars that sounds like Rebecca Roanhorse. So I was like, okay, I think I could do that. And so that's how you do it. And they have a wonderful team that supports you. They have the people who are sort of like their whole job is to be super fans. So you can do something like, I need, I need a ship to break, and I need it to break for just like 5 minutes so they can quickly fix it. And they're like, well, here's 3 options. That you could do this, I could do this, and I could do this. And you're like, well, thank God, because I knew nothing about an X-Wing, but these people are like X-Wing experts, and they didn't hire me to be an X-Wing expert, thank God. They hired me, to create characters and to create worlds and to tell a good story. So, yeah.
And our convention chairs are here, and they are completely enamored that you did that in 4 months. So,
I know, right? Ooh, it was a lot.
Yes, but it sounds like it was great fun, though.
It was absolutely, yeah.
You get to play,
and then I got to visit their headquarters in San Francisco, and that was awesome. And, and then being part of the Star Wars world is just a lot of fun. When you go to Comic-Cons and things like that, you're like, oh, this is cool. I get to sit on the big stage. Yeah. So
are you gonna make it to Dragon Con, you think, anytime soon?
I don't know. The Resistance Reborn was nominated for an award, for Dragon Award. So that was, thank you so much. Very happy for that. So we'll just see. My schedule's a little bit nuts, but one day, hopefully.
Yes. Well, if you do, let me know, because, I'm part of that group too. Okay. I've got my fingers in all kinds of pies here in Atlanta. Awesome. So it's kind of scary. So, and then you also worked on Marvel stuff.
I have, yeah.
For somebody who never aspired to be a professional writer, I feel like you're doing that part wrong. You're doing the professional writer part absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I'm trying. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I actually wrote a series for Echo,
Mhm.
who is a native character who is also deaf and a fighter. And she was possessed by the Phoenix for the Phoenix power.
Mhm.
And they needed someone to write a 5 series uh, comic for her.
You know
So
that
I got
thing they
that gig.
do.
I know. So that was a lot of fun. And since then, I've gotten to write other characters. I've gotten to write She-Hulk and Werewolf by Night and Moon Knight. And yeah, I never really thought I would write comics either.
The
The
thing
thing
with
with
pictures.
pictures, thank you. There's going to be a lot of that. I warned you about my memory, right? So,
It's all good. It is all good.
yeah. So yeah, that's fun. Marvel's just a little thing that often comes along, and I get to write for that. And my most recent project was She-Hulk. I did a little frame story for Women of Marvel. They put out
Mhm.
a volume, a thing with pictures. And I got to be part of that. And then at the last Comic-Con, I got to sit with all the Women of Marvel folks, and we did this great panel talking about all the sort of female characters and where they're going, and that was a lot of fun. That was very, very cool.
Yes, that is fabulous.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, so now, right now, as probably most everybody who's watching knows, we've got a strike going on, the
Mm.
Writers Guild strike. So is that affecting you? Like, what does that look like for you as a professional writer who is part, particularly of the industries that are very, very affected by the strike?
Yeah. So the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, is on strike. For those who don't know, those are all the television and film writers. And I am a member of the WGA. I've been in a couple of writers' rooms, which I'm happy to talk a little bit about. And I wrote the pilot for Black Sun, for the adaptation of Black Sun, which hopefully maybe one day you'll get to see on TV. So Black Sun is one of my novels.
Yes, you should read it. Sorry.
So, yeah, so we're on strike, and we're just trying to get fair pay for the work that we do. I think what we're asking for is like 2% of the profits from what the studios have made off of our labor. Unfortunately, writers are still sort of at the bottom of the barrel as far as pay and respect goes. And because of streaming, things have really changed as far as trying to make writing a viable living. We are not well paid as people might think we are. I think people think, oh, TV writers, you must make so much money. But you work for these very brief amount of time, and you never know when the next, gig is coming. It's very much sort of this gig economy. And now that with streaming, there's no residuals, so you don't get paid when things are in reruns because there are no reruns. They're just constantly being streamed. And so it's tough. And so it's time to renegotiate that contract. And that's what we're trying to do. So yeah, more power to the writers.
Yeah, I absolutely support this. I'm not watching any streaming while the writers' strike's going on, because I agree with you across the board, not just there, but like writers' labor is not respected. Like, you literally would not have Marvel without writers.
Right.
You would not have any movies without writers.
Right.
We're the first rung on the ladder. Yeah. So yes. So I'm hoping that resolves well for the writers, because I feel like, with streaming, absolutely the writers should get their share as long as it's streaming.
Right.
I mean, that's essentially the same as reruns on network television. So Joe says, plus it's the first union to tackle what all unions are about to experience with AI. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's a whole nother ball of wax, right?
Right. And right
So,
now the studios are like, oh no, we're not taking AI off the table. So
mhm.
they would like to replace the writers with AI if they
Yes.
can. If they would save them money, they would do it.
I
So
mean,
that's
that's corporate.
terrifying.
That's corporations, period, across
Yeah,
the board. If corporations can replace humans with technology, they will.
they will.
So, all
Yeah.
right. Yay, late stage capitalism. All right.
We'll see. Yes.
Yes. Now, you mentioned that you're in writers' rooms. I personally am fascinated by writers' rooms. I watched Aaron Sorkin's masterclass on the
Mm,
masterclass.com site. And
yeah.
what he does is he actually has a group of new graduates, screenwriters, and they do a writer's room and they write.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really, really cool just watching the process. So, so I'm wondering if you would share with us what's that like being in a writer's room?
Oh, chaotic. No, it really depends on who your showrunner is.
Oh, sure.
They bring so the showrunner is sort of like the manager slash like lead writer person, depending on, sort of everyone is a little different. I was in a
Mhm.
writer's room for Marvel, and then I was in a writer's room for a sci-fi show that's going to be coming out on Hulu. That I don't know if what I should say, but it's by the folks who did the OA.
Oh,
If you're familiar with the OA,
that's going to be good then.
Britain's all, yeah. So it's gonna be weird and very cool. Uh, and so that was a lot of fun. It's very interesting. I think the major difference is when you are writing a novel, you're writing for yourself, or you're writing by yourself, I should
Right.
say. So it's your ideas. It's your responsibility to come up with everything. It's all on you, which is both good and bad, right? Because
Mhm.
it's a lot of like work and responsibility. Whereas in a writer's room, you're really there to support the showrunner's vision of the show. And yes, you come up with ideas, and yes, you have things to contribute, but you can't get too attached because it's really not yours at the end of the day.
Right.
You're sort of creating a product. It's a little more like working with IP. Like when I work with Marvel or
Mhm.
work with Star Wars, I don't own these ideas. This is not the world that I created.
Mhm.
So I'm there to sort of service the ideas and bring my contribution, but
Right.
not get too attached if they go, no, we're not going to do that. So it's a bit like that.
Yeah. Then you just file it away for a story you're going to
Yeah,
write in the future.
hopefully. But it is a lot of fun, I think, to collaborate, like to create
Mhm.
collaboratively. And when you're in a writer's room and things are flowing and things are cool and ideas are bouncing off, and you've got all these other great people with great ideas that are taking yours and pushing it further, or you're taking
Mhm.
theirs and then, putting it over here. And that's when it's like really fire. Like that's when it's amazing. And you're like, this is so cool. But then, when they're like, yeah, I know you spent all the time coming up with that idea, but we're not going to take that. Then you're like, oh, this is so sad.
Dang it. It
Oh,
sounds like the best iteration of like a brainstorming session. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
when you get a bunch of writers together, because I run a writerly support group on Facebook, and we do a lot of events every week. And one thing that we do pretty regularly is brainstorming if somebody's having a
Mhm.
problem with their story and stuff. And we just kind of bounce it off each other and we play with it. What if this happened? And what if that happened? And of course,
Yes,
again, it's not our story.
right.
And then the author takes whatever they want and runs with it. So it feels like it's just like the next level up from that.
Yeah, very
So
much. Yes. And then you
that
have to go
sounds
write a script under a very tight deadline, and that can be a little challenging. And there was a huge learning curve between writing prose and writing screenplays.
mhm.
Um, I wouldn't say I've mastered it yet, but I'm getting there slowly. So we'll see. But yeah, that's part of it too.
Another learning curve.
Huge. Yes, right. This is all learning constantly.
So we have a question out there. When your show gets picked up, and it will for Black Sun, what will you take from those experiences in those rooms to run yours? Will,
Ah,
will you be the showrunner? Like,
I
how
don't
will that
think so.
work?
Yeah, I doubt it because especially fantasy shows are a lot of money. So when you're writing these things, and you're asking these studios to invest millions of dollars in your show, right?
Mhm.
I don't think they're gonna let me run it. I would be awesome if they did, but they're probably gonna be like, you could be in the room, but you can't run the room.
Right. Maybe somebody who has experience doing that should do that.
Because a lot of it is management,
Right.
and there's all these different, the other thing about working in film and TV is there are people who are experts in all their little corners, of what it takes to create this team. So for like, let's say costuming. So when I'm writing a novel, I'm researching all the food, I'm researching the clothes, I'm researching, the location and the land. And like someone mentioned, like sales, like when I wrote Black Sun and the whole Between Earth and Sky trilogy, I did all this research on like the nautical Maya, and then sort of Polynesian sailing methods and things like that, because I didn't want it to feel European. I wanted it to feel from the Americas. But there are people out there, if it comes to film, who do this, for a living. They know what people wore and what people ate, and like how to bring that all, and make it contemporary, but also feel historical. So that's not my job as the writer, right? So I don't know where I was going with that, but I think it has to do with like who's going to be in charge. So it's not going to be me.
Oh my gosh, you remind me so much of me. It's like I'll be like, I have no idea. I have no idea what my point was, but it was interesting information.
Right. So but certainly every time I'm in, lucky enough to be in a writer's room, I learn, from experience, like what that's like and what works and what doesn't work, and what people want to hear from you and when they don't want to hear from you, frankly, when you need to just shut up, and how to write a script, a little better every time.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, and Joe asked, did you get on set when you were working in the writers' rooms you worked in?
No, unfortunately, I have not had a chance to be on set. And that is one of the reasons also we are striking, is because often these limited writers' rooms with limited writers don't bring people on set because you have to pay them, right? And so they're not passing on the skill set to the next generation to be able to, sort of become showrunners and to move up and become, where you need to be. So that's problematic too, right?
Yes, that makes total sense. So you mentioned when you were talking, you mentioned Between Earth and Sky, and my understanding is you told me earlier that you've just finished up the last book.
Yes, the third book in the trilogy, Mirrored Heavens.
Awesome. So do you want to tell us a little bit about maybe not the book itself, or maybe, I don't know, whatever you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I won't spoil in case, people have not read Fevered Star. So actually, I think you end up showing books when you do this, but I will show. So Black Sun is the first book in the series. Yay. And I just want to say there we go. So the artist is John Picasso, and I want to definitely give him credit because look at that fabulous art.
Do you know he was our very first artist guest of honor at Multiverse?
Of course he was, because he's awesome.
He is.
And so Fevered Star is the second book in that series, which he also did the cover of. Oh, it's all shiny. And he did Mirrored Heavens as well, which is, I cannot show you because we have not released it yet, but I have seen it and it is mind-blowing. It is the best cover yet, I think. It's absolutely amazing. And as you can tell, each of these books sort of focused on different characters. The first one on Serapio, the crow god reborn. The second one, Narampa, the sun, avatar of the sun. You see it's all shiny like the sun. And the third one will really focus on Shiala, who is our mermaid, siren, sailor person that I was talking about earlier. And so you can imagine what that cover is going to look like. It's so good. And so I won't give anything away, I guess, except to say that let's see, what can I tell you? So in the second book, Balaam became a point of view character. In the third book, we will add 2 more point of view characters. One of them will be Iktan.
Okay.
And the other, I'll save the other. I won't tell you.
Secrets.
Yeah.
Secrets.
So it expands, and the draft I turned in most recently was, I believe, about 165,000 words.
Wow,
so
there's the tome. Yeah, it's hefty. It's a hefty book.
It's pretty massive.
Do we have a release date for it yet?
Summer of 2024. Yeah, unfortunately, it was supposed to come out end of this summer, but delays and changes and things, it just didn't happen, unfortunately. So Sorry, folks, but it will be out next year. Summer.
I was hoping to pick it up in Multiverse, but I guess
Really?
not.
Oh, I know.
Maybe you like Multiverse enough that you will come and visit us in sometime in the future as just a regular guest, not just a guest of honor, being super fancy.
That would be great. I will say I might have ARCs, the advanced reader copies by then. So I might have a few to give out. So
that would be lovely.
Get it a little early. Sorry. Get mad at me when I give away the secrets.
Yes, we would rather us be a little disappointed than them be mad at you, because we definitely don't want that.
Yeah.
I read that, so the Black Sun adaptation, I know it was originally supposed to be done through AMC, and then the showrunner moved over to Amazon. Is that still kind of in the works, or we're not sure?
Angela Kang is she's the producer.
Oh, okay.
And she was the showrunner for The Walking Dead.
Oh, that's where I was.
Yeah. And so she has an overall deal with she had an overall deal with AMC. Now you're right, she's at Amazon. But AMC is still the driver for Black Sun. I think that's all I'll say right now. I don't
that's totally cool.
Sure, but AMC is still involved and Angela's still involved. Yes.
Okay, great. So I will keep my fingers crossed about that, because I would really love to see that. Like, like, oh yay, arcs, awesome, yes. So I thought I'd share with you a little bit about Multiverse, if you'd like.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah. So one of the things that we do the most fun author readings you will ever have. You will have your own special author reading because you're the guest of honor. We're one of the guests of honor. So you'll have your own special author reading if you want one. But we have this thing that we do story time. And because, you may not have experienced this because you have a very strangely, good things happen to you, like all in a row. So you may not have experienced this, but for those of us who have not had that good luck, sometimes when you go into a reading, you're going to read, you get all this anxiety beforehand. Is anybody going to show up? And, and I think most authors have that regardless of success level, right? But for those of us who are not, who have not had big success or anything, it actually often happened, it's often true, right? So what we do, that you might enjoy, is we actually have something called story time, where authors only read 5 minutes. That's it. And everybody brings something. All the authors it's a group reading. All the authors bring something to give away. And people get a raffle. I'm sorry. They get a giveaway ticket. I can't say raffle because that's not legal in Georgia. A giveaway ticket for attending, but then they can earn additional ones if they volunteer to act out what's about to be read without knowing what's about to be read. So
improv, right?
Yes. And it is hilarious and silly and fun. So that's just one little thing that you have in store for you in October at Multiverse.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yes.
I will have to pick something ridiculous.
It has to be something.
Act it out.
Yes, it has to be something with like action, right? Because people can't really act out talking, right? So yeah, so it is fun. Literally last year there was one yes, the chairs came into the very last one. We had 3 different sessions last year at different times of the day. And they came into the very last one, and it was just so much fun and ridiculous. But at one point, one of the authors who, they weren't reading their own work at the moment, but they volunteered. And literally at one point, they were rolling around on the floor, acting this scene out. It was so funny and ridiculous. Oh, so yes. So that's one of the things you have to look forward to if you want to participate in that.
Right.
So yeah. So any questions out there in the world? I went through everything kind of I wanted to talk about. So
good.
like we just like barreled right on through there. You've been so much
I'm
fun.
kind of chatty, that's why.
Me too. So I love that. I love that. Do you have anything specific that you'd like to share with the audience today?
Oh,
I know we already covered Between Earth and Sky, and
oh yeah, I have a few things I could share that people might not know about.
yeah, I'd love that.
Let's see. I'm just gonna come down to the floor and pick them up off the floor. Give me 1 second.
Excellent. I love it. So the convention said story time really connects the audience to the reading in a different way. Yeah, and the whole point of it is to connect with as people rather than standing up there and reading my work and everything. So anyway, what are you going to share with us?
Okay, so a couple of things that are kind of fun. So I edited this year, or for last year, the Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy.
Oh, nice.
So with John Joseph Adams, I was the guest editor. So this is a collection of the 20 arbitrarily best science fiction and fantasy stories of 2022. And this was just a lot of fun. I'd never edited anything before, so this was a totally different experience.
Oh, nice. I love how one of the things I really like about your journey as you shared it with us is that you are embracing doing new and different things. Like everything you've talked about is all different from the thing you had just done. And you're just like, yes, let's do it. I'll learn the things as I go.
Yes.
I love that.
Slightly terrifying and a little bit like nutty, but yes, I figure I could just learn as I go. And you never know, so you just have to take chances sometime and kind of see what happens.
Yeah.
So if you were looking for a curated list of the best short stories of 2022, this is the one. So this, cool. And I think this year, I think I'm allowed to say this because I saw that she posted it on Instagram, but RF Kwong is going to do the next one.
Oh, nice.
If you're not reading her work, she's also a Rebecca. If you're not reading her work, you really should be, because she's absolutely amazing. So go read Babel, which will probably win. Maybe, I don't know. It's nominated for a Nebula this year, so I think it should win. But there are lots of other good books too.
Right, they're all great books.
Very good. That one's really good. I also wrote a little novella, Tread of Angels.
I was reading about that yesterday.
Yeah, the UK cover. I have an American version somewhere. I don't know where. But this was kind of fun, very different. I don't know,
Why was it different? What was different about it?
So this is a Western. This is a Western noir. And, people don't always like Westerns are noir. So this was kind of, this is me taking a chance. Plus it's super, it's about angels and demons in like the 1880s, and there's been the war on heaven, and people have fallen, and so it's sort of this interesting little experiment, like a world that I wanted to build, but I'm in the midst of writing this huge epic fantasy, and I didn't really have time to divert to writing a whole separate novel because my editor's like, well, you have this thing called a contract, so maybe you should fulfill it.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, well, maybe I have this idea though, and I really need to express it. And he's like, do it very briefly.
A short expression.
Exactly, right. So that's what I did. So, and this was kind of inspired by a trip through Colorado. And going to Leadville, which is the highest city, I guess it's a town, in the lower 48. It's at above 10,000 feet. It's absolutely beautiful, amazing little place. It was like this booming mining town that in its heyday hosted people like Oscar Wilde.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you don't associate Oscar Wilde with the frontier.
No, right? But they had this opera house and he came, and anyway, so that was kind of cool. That was my inspiration, but it's kind of a little noir, a little murder mystery type thing. But also just about relationships and how far you'll go to protect the ones you love. So that was kind of fun.
Nice.
And then I did this project, and I have the cards. I think my daughter actually stole the cards, but I did this project for Brink Literary, and they made this gorgeous.
Oh my gosh!
Video. And I know the Oracle's Atlas, and let me just You cannot even see like how beautiful this thing is.
Oh,
And it comes with, oh, there's mine. I was like, oh, I was trying to find mine earlier. I did the death card. Of course I did.
of course you did.
For that. And it comes with a tarot deck. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And it's a nonprofit. All the profits go towards literacy, teaching literacy in prison and things like that. But they had a bunch of different authors. So many people got involved in this book. Just let's see, how are some of the people? Chloe Gong, Christopher Golden, I don't know, Joe Abercrombie,
Wow.
Lee Bardugo, like all sorts of folks contributed to this. And we created a tarot deck, a literary tarot deck. So mine is Dracula.
Yes, it is.
Card, because I'm really down with that. And so anyway, it's very, very cool. And I just wanted to put a little promo out there for them because they did a gorgeous job, and it's a nonprofit, Brink Literary, and you can order one of your very own. Especially if you're into tarot, this is, a thing.
I feel like I wanna tell the Multiverse convention chairs that we should make sure that our in-house our con bookstore has some of those. I'm just saying, Jesse, if you're out there.
Very cool.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was really, really impressed.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
So Jesse asked, I'm assuming it's Jesse, he asked, do you have any other recommendations for the audience? Anything you've read or watched or listened to that you think other people need to experience?
Oh gosh, and I love giving recommendations. I should have had a little list, but I already mentioned R.F. Kuang's Babel. I would definitely recommend Shelley Parker Chan, She Who Became the Sun, and the second one in that duology coming out in just a few months, He Who Drowned the World. Oh my God, it blow your mind.
Right.
Very emotional. I don't know. I was so wrecked. As the kids say, screaming, crying, throwing up. That's one of those books. But absolutely amazing. So that's Shelley Parker Chan, She Who Became the Sun, and He Who Drowned the World. And He Who Drowned the World is just mind-blowing.
I'm writing this down because I definitely, if you're like, because if you're like so blown away by it, I'm like, well, that's definitely.
I was pretty devastated. It is hardcore though. Like it's not, I will tell you, I will warn you, it's not grimdark because she says that she does not write grimdark. But it is the grimmest, darkest freaking book I have ever read. But in a good way. But
Right.
just, I had to sometimes take breaks and go out and like feel the sun on my face and remind myself, that things are maybe okay.
Yes. Tim Levin's books do that. Like when I read his books, I have to like put them down because they're just too hard. Like, murder our TBR files.
Told. Like I was like, she takes hurt people to a whole new level. Like it is some dark stuff, but really good, very well written, incredibly emotional stuff.
All right.
Yay! Yes, read that one. That's not quite as She Who Became the Sun is like good, but it's not going to wreck you the way that the second one.
But it's the first part of a duology.
Correct.
That goes with the one that does wreck you.
Yes. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. And then what else have I read that I can recommend? Oh, I really loved. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The Genesis of Misery by Neon Yang. I don't know if you've read that one. I think the tagline is like Joan of Arc in space. I would say Joan of Arc in space with a dose of Pacific Rim. It's pretty awesome. I really love that one. That's one of my faves. And then Chloe Gong, we mentioned her. She has her first adult. She writes mostly YA, but she has her first adult novel coming out called Immortal Longings. And it's sort of like an Antony and Cleopatra retelling in a cyberspace world, or a cyberspace, like what is the word I'm looking for? Cyberpunk world.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of an 80s vibe, maybe, and with like a fight to the death, like a game to the death, but which is not my favorite trope, but she pulls it off really well. The characters are excellent. The twists are like, oh, I didn't know what was coming. So I really love that one too. Any book that can like really F me up with the twist, I'm like, I'm down.
Yes, same. It's like if you can get me,
Yeah.
like I am a forever fan. If you can get me, I am with you forever.
Yeah, because that's hard. I think that's hard because you got to
Right.
lay the foundation. You got to make sure, it can't be so surprising that you're like, what, Deus Ex Machina. But it also can't be like, oh, I saw that coming a mile away. You should always feel, thank you so much. Should always feel like it was inevitable, but you still didn't get it.
Yes. I think that's especially challenging when if your audience are storytellers anyway, because like we tend to like my husband hates watching shows with me because I'll be like, oh, so and so such and such, just calling it, like not giving any detail. And he's like, no, that's not okay. And we get further on and it's like, how did you know that? It's like, because that's
the trick. I know the tricks.
Right, exactly. That's where I would have gone with it. So of course that's where they went. But then when I'm wrong, I'm like, okay, I like you.
That's good. Yeah. So on that note, I will recommend a TV show, The Glory, which is a K-drama. It's a revenge K-drama. It's on Netflix, so you can watch season 1 and season 2. Season 1 is good. And like at the end of season 1, you're like, oh, snap. And then season 2, you're like, oh my God, my face is melting. It's so good. And like,
I'll wait till after the strike to watch that.
Okay, great. Well, it's Korean, so it's not WGA, but yeah. Fair enough. Give money to Netflix.
The streaming service.
Yes. But it is great. And like revenge is hard to write well.
Yeah.
I think because it can be very one note, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just do a fabulous job. And the whole time you're just on the edge of your seat, like, please don't let my babies fail. Very, very dark, but really, really good.
And that's actually such a good, just such a good sign in a story is if you are so invested in the characters that you're just like, please let it work.
Right? I want them to win. I know, right? Yeah. Oh, so anyway, so those are my recommendations.
Thank you. I wrote a whole bunch of those down.
Oh, good.
Excellent. So we've only got a couple more minutes. So what I'd like to ask is if someone who's watching this has never read any of your stuff, what would you recommend they start with?
Oh, goodness. Okay, so I have a website, RebeccaRoanhorse.com. And
we'll have that down in the notes, y'all.
Oh, yay. So, yeah. And I have a list of pretty much everything I've written.
Mm-hmm.
I actually probably have over a dozen short stories. I have 2 series, the Between Earth and Sky series and the Sixth World series. So it really depends on what you like. If you like urban fantasy, check out the Sixth World. If you like epic fantasy, Between Earth and Sky would be your jam. I have comics. I have short stories. My short stories tend to be, I have some YA short stories. Like I have a cowboy vampire short story, which, people are like, what? But I love it.
Why wouldn't you though? Like, come on, it's cowboys and vampires. Come on now.
I know, right? I think it makes sense. And then of course I have, like I said, the Star Wars. I also wrote a Star Wars short of Darth Maul, which I absolutely love. And then the person who does Darth Maul's voice, Sam Winter, I believe. I got his last name wrong. Did the audiobook for that. It is so bad. It is so cool. I was like, he's reading my words. He's reading my words. It's very cool. Anyway, so there's just a lot of stuff you could check out, depending on like what your taste is. And, kind of check out. I even wrote a kid's book, and I have a lovely little kid's short story about a res dog who goes on an adventure, Ozzy the res dog. And so you can do that if you want something lighthearted and fun.
That's awesome. And if y'all want to read that first short story, Welcome to Your Authentic Indian Experience, TM, trademark. I always forget that part when I say it. It's up on Apex's website that you
For
can,
free.
and you can read it. Yes, for free. So just Google it and you'll find it. So Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I so appreciate you being here. You were so lovely to talk to. I really look forward to meeting you in 3D in October. Y'all remember Multiverse is this year in Atlanta, October 20th through the 22nd. You can find more about the convention at multiversecon.org. Thank you again, Rebecca. And y'all don't forget, it's always time to go indie now.